This is Dr. Chris's Radio of Horror show here at WCW, and tonight on the show with us we have artist Shannon Maer on the show. Thank you for coming on.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
Your art style is incredibly realistic in a lot of ways in the face of a lot of your characters. It looks almost like it was lifted from a photograph. There's just such great lines and everything. Where did you get started with your style? Is it all done in computers?
Yeah, originally I worked strictly traditional, all oil paint, and then at a given point I switched over to digital. I was always interested in it. It wasn't, popular early on, but I saw it as a tool that I was very interested in, seeing what I could do with it. So I was actually, one of the very early on digital artists. I had an agent for book covers, and he actually wasn't sure how to promote me exactly because digital art wasn't common. So he kind of promoted me as, a technological wizard, and I'm like, well, I just use Photoshop, It wasn't common at the time. People didn't understand it.
A lot of your work, I mean, it's really hard to find one or two, but 90% of your work seems to be all women. Is there a particular woman these are based on?
No, not a specific woman. I do occasional male models or creatures and stuff like that. I guess, clients often want to see more of what maybe they discovered you doing and that they figured that, their customers might want. So, I get excited, when I get a little bit of an opportunity to break from it. I definitely enjoy illustrating, female characters, but when I get a chance to do Daredevil or something, I get very excited about it.
Do you ever want to tell somebody, no, I want to do that, we need to do Black Cat or Mary Jane? You're like, no, I'd rather do Spider-Man. Okay, can you do Spider-Woman? No, I want to do Spider-Man. Okay, can you do Spider-Gwen? No, I want to do Spider-Man. Does it ever become a back and forth?
I've been exactly.
I mean, you draw women freaking beautifully. I mean, it's the most striking thing. You see your covers on the on the newsstands for Vampirella or I think one of the earliest ones I saw was the Cult of Dracula, but it was also Dark Red, which was Tim Seeley's book. Mm-hmm. That just eye-popping image, to best way to describe it.
Thank you. I'm having a few recollections of some covers, so I don't want to say exactly what they were and feel like I had to put anybody on the spot. But if there's a comic that, maybe has a male lead and I get excited about working on it, and then I get the request in for another character for that cover instead, and I'm like, oh, all right, but next time. Can we do it next time?
Do you have a hard time trying to make the different women look different? You look at J. Scott Campbell stuff, and every single woman looks exactly the same. There's no denying, there's no fighting that every woman he draws, the face looks exactly the same. From Mary Jane to Spider-Gwen to Vampirella to Gen 13.
Well, there's, styles for that. So that's kind of a more traditional, comic book style. And I guess I go a little bit more, realistic. Interesting, have this pointed out. So Harley Quinn is one of my favorite characters, to illustrate. And each time I work on her, it's like I have a different attitude about how I want to approach her character. Darker, gloomy, maybe a little crazy. Other times, giddy, playful. And it just kind of affects how I approach her overall look. So even if I'm doing a character that I've done before, I don't feel like I need to represent her, exactly the same as if it's like interiors and it's page after page. It's a whole new cover, and I'm like, well, I can kind of make her look however my mood is right now.
Do you ever get any? Do you ever get any pushback with your artwork? Like, do you ever like what's some of the criticism would people would like go against it?
Oh, you have all the fun questions.
I do. We're not afraid to ask the tough questions.
No,
I mean, we've had artists that draw a lot of voluptuous looking women or very sexy looking characters, or they've cosplayed as them as well. We had one of the models from the '90s, Vampirella, on the show with us just recently. Yeah, Sasha something. I forget what her last name, but she was the '90s Harris comic Vampirella, and it was a hoot just talking about the whole process of becoming that character.
So, are you talking pushbacks from like early on when I guess my comics work was getting more popular? I'd see some commentary out there, and then tended to notice that a lot of it was just coming from the same few people, and then it's like, why? What's going on here? Criticisms, you always have to take them with a grain of salt because you don't know why they're doing it. Not everybody has to like everything. Not everybody has to like my work. That's fine. But then you'll come across some people that just seem to be on the attack everywhere. It's like you couldn't go into a cooking group and, see them commenting, oh, yeah, well, that sounds like a great recipe. But who's a terrible artist? It's like it would get pretty bad with a few people. And then there was one, I'm not going to use any names or specifics, but I'm like, wait, that name sounds familiar. And I went looking, and they were in my friends list, and I was like, wait, and I went in my messages, and I had received a message from them, and they were a retailer, and they really wanted to work with me. And at the time, I was a little confused. I thought they were attached to some other companies, and I didn't want to, respond to him and be confused about who he was. So I set it aside until I figured it out. And I get busy, and I guess I forgot, and I didn't respond. And that person went on the attack for years after me. And they'd be like the number one hater that I had out there. And who were they? Well, they were apparently a big fan that was really excited to have me do some covers for them.
Huh.
Yeah. So, when I see this out there, I try to remind myself everybody's entitled to their opinion. And if it gets extra vicious, you don't know. They could just be somebody that maybe I missed the message from them, or maybe they have a competitive, artist or artist that they're working with, and they're looking to put other people down. So, yeah, sometimes it's a little like, really? But then, I do my best to just dismiss it.
Do you have one particular cover that was your absolute favorite? The one that you have the original. If you painted it, let's just say, obviously digitally you can't. It's on the computer, but one that you hand painted that you have the original artwork of that you adore and will never sell.
I'd say actually a favorite cover that I would lean towards, and I have original pencils for it as well, which came out well. I got very, very detailed with the pencil rendering for that. Was Wonder Woman. That cover, I don't know. It's not common that I just feel happy like when it's completed and sometime after. Often, I guess when I finish a cover, it's hard for me to get a fresh look at it, and I may not be thrilled with it. Then later on, I'll be like, oh, it's okay, and then or the opposite. Given some time, I'm like, look at it, I could have done better. but I didn't have any real complaints with it. So if you want to call that a favorite, if I look back at my Wonder Woman cover, I think that was I'm gonna yes, this is why I said I always have Becky around to ask her which cover was it? Wonder Woman 750.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, potentially that's still my favorite. Or the other one is my Storm cover, which very potentially is a runner because I've had that one as my screensaver for a couple of years now, and I never do that. It gets tough seeing like my same artwork like on my screensaver. Something about it usually bothers me, and I've been, I guess, content with my Storm cover as well.
Your Vampirella covers are absolutely my favorite, but just because I have a big affinity for vampires in general, being a vampire writer myself, my own vampire characters, and a new one coming. My favorite comic book female character is always going to be Black Cat, so I actually really enjoy that one as well. But just because, again, vampires tickle me so much, it's all of the Vampirella stuff that I just absolutely love.
Oh, awesome.
When you're at a con, there was a great conversation I had with Matt Hawkins over at Top Cow. Are you familiar with him?
Becky is.
Yes, Becky.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were talking about how a lot of artists at these conventions, let's just use San Diego Comic-Con as an example because it's the biggest one. A lot of these artists that have never worked at like DC, Marvel, Top Cow, Image, and done artwork covers for them, all these different characters like Storm, Vampirella, Black Cat, Wonder Woman, Harley Quinn, so on and so forth. If they're not drawing these characters professionally for these companies, they shouldn't be selling prints of these characters without permission from the studios. You have worked for all these companies and done all these amazing covers, and you're entitled to your artwork and your prints of your own artwork as well. Do you believe that artists should focus on what they're hired to work on and their own creations, or be free to draw and make money off of any creation?
Putting me on the spot again. That's all up to the publishers, whatever kind of relationship they want to have with their fans and stuff. So some companies will allow it and think it's good promotion, and I guess other, companies want to say no and ask people not to do it. I think that's, all up to them. I didn't want to, do that, personally before doing like any of these covers and stuff. It was just something that I avoided, and I can't be certain, which publishers are okay with it. They got rules and regulations around that out there, but I think it's up to those companies if they want to, let people do it and they think it's good promotion for them, or they just want, would prefer people don't. I think that's entirely up to them.
Do you get a lot of outrageous requests from fans for different commissions and stuff like that? Like I've seen a lot of your fantasy work with like elves and fairies are partially nude or semi-nude, but obviously none of the characters that are under some type of copyright, like again Vampirella or Catwoman or anything like that. Do you get a lot of requests from any kind of fan, whether it be male or female, to do like a nude Catwoman or something?
We don't really get an opportunity to go down that road because I really don't do the commissions. I'm so, busy all the time. Like I'm always multitasking on many things. So even if I'm at a show, it's kind of the closest I get to taking a break is being at a show. And I don't want to, have to be doing commissions all day as well and go back to the hotel room. Like I tried that early on, and I wasn't thrilled with it. And I'd go back to the hotel, and I'm doing remarks and stuff, and it wasn't for me. But that's just because of how I have my days scheduled. It's different for everybody. That just hasn't been for me.
Do you have any characters that you've created yourself?
Well, I have a comic book series that I'm working on the final issue right now. It's a 5-issue series, Siren's Gate.
Yes. Yep.
It's been published through Dynamite, so all those characters are my characters.
That's cool. Yeah, I saw the first cover. I saw the first or second issue of that. As I didn't know much about it, I decided just because I know they'll collect all the covers with it, I would wait for the trade paperback to come out.
Yeah. Right now I'm viewing it, since the beginning I viewed it as, looking at it as a season, because I wanted to be able to do this and not have a commitment for ongoing with it, but I definitely wanted to have the consideration of being able to make it an ongoing series. So I approached the first run as viewing it as a season. So I'm working currently on the season 1 finale, and if we decide to continue it from there, that's where we're at right now.
Who's a artist growing up before you started becoming an artist yourself was a big inspiration for you to be like, he or she can do it, I can do it too?
My favorites were the fantasy artists,
like Frank Frazetta.
So yeah, Frank Frazetta, Boris Vallejo,
Tim Vigil,
that were at TSR.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, so that was the kind of stuff I was really into. I think my first real big spark was Boris Vallejo. I got introduced to Frank Frazetta later on. I'd say those two were my biggest role models. I really got drawn in with Boris doing. It was fantasy, but a lot of his work was very surreal, so it didn't feel like it was limited to the genre. Like, it didn't just have to be, dragons and knights and, all that stuff is cool, but that he would break from that and just do some really surreal work that, still worked with the style. So I think I was really drawn into the genre because of that.
What's some of the what's some covers for some characters coming up that you got coming?
Oh, well, I never really actually talk about them before they're announced. But okay, but yeah, and Becky, feel free to speak up. She's whispering. I told you this is why.
Oh yeah, I mean, if there's something you can't talk about, that's totally fine. I mean, I get it, NDAs and all that stuff.
Yeah, they've been announced.
Oh, they've been announced. Okay, so if they're in Diamond, yeah, you can mention them.
Yeah, that's what Becky's reminding me of. The Comic Mint will have exclusives at New York Comic Con. Wonder Woman 1. I think it's a first issue. So Wonder Woman, and the other one is Spider-Gwen, Spider-Gwen Annual #1. Okay.
Oh,
Wonder
excellent.
Woman,
yeah, you draw a fantastic Spider-Gwen. Spider-Woman or Spider-Gwen?
Spider-Gwen.
Spider-Gwen.
Yep.
That's one character in particular. I mean, Vampirella aside, Spider-Gwen, when you draw her, looks just like I see a lot of cosplayers look with her. That's just how the material stretches over their frame and figure. It looks incredibly identical to the way, again, I go to a lot of cons in the area and see a lot of Spider-Gwens. And just I constantly am, and whenever I see your version of Spider-Gwen, I'm like, God, that reminds me of a cosplayer I just saw.
Okay, very cool.
What do you use for a program? What do you use for a pad to draw these?
Oh, I'm on a. It's funny. I've wanted to talk about this. I use Wacom Intuos Pro. Actually, I do want to give you the number. Do you see? Does it say? Okay. Well, I use an Intuos Pro. I wanted to know what number that was because they have newer models, and I've used this one now. I mean, goodness, it could be 20 years, and it's still working great. And I literally worried about, if something happened to it. So I went on eBay and was able to find, a new one in a box, and I had to order myself a backup on it. I like working with the pad in front of me as opposed to like on a Cintiq, so leaning into the screen. Granted, I've never spent much time trying to work on it that way. I've, tested that in the shop, and I didn't think it was going to be comfortable. Sometimes you're surprised, if you give it a weekend and you work in a certain way, you may really like it. But I haven't. I just haven't wanted to strain my shoulders more doing that.
It's funny you say that about your shoulder, because Ken Hunt, who is my artist on my graphic novel, Vlada, A Dracula Tale, my vampire, he almost had to have shoulder surgery drawing because of the 25 pages he did in 2 months of Vlada, and then turning around doing a bunch of commission work, and then my comic book, 2 of my comic books later that year, he was having all sorts of weird problems with his shoulder and this nerve pinch, and thank God he went to a therapist and exercise helped it out, and he didn't have to have surgery, because it would have put him out of commission for 6 months. But is that a common thing with your shoulder and your hand? Is it because of how the way the nerve ending is?
It's I run into it plenty often, and I guess over time, I've learned a little bit, because I've overstrained and overdone it, plenty. And when I feel that starting, I try to remind myself, it's well, I can keep pushing right now, and I'll get a little extra work done, but that could mean that I'm out of commission for a couple of weeks, and then I just wind up, getting less done. So I'd say my usual way I operate is working a little bit more than I should be, but remembering to take a little bit of a break now and then, just because if I overdo it, I'm not going to get ahead. I'm just going to, fall behind more.
Mm-hmm. When you're, are you, let me start over. People collect your covers. What do you collect?
What do I collect?
And if you say Funko Pops, I hang the call up. No, I'm kidding.
I wouldn't say anything specific. I love going to the shows, and I love, walking around and just, seeing new stuff and getting a little excited or enthusiastic about it, and getting to talk to the creators and being supportive like that. So it's kind of, it's very much random that I'll pick up. I am a box subscriber, if that's what it's called, for with Tom at Comic Tom.
Mm-hmm.
So we get their mystery box.
Oh, neat. Is there any comic book? Is there any particular comic book you're reading right now?
Just my own, over and over again, because I'm in the middle of writing and illustrating it.
Gotcha.
So this past year, it's kind of been all my free time kind of devoted to that. So no, I don't have a series that I'm in the middle of.
How this will be one of the last 2 questions, because we'll hit the 30-minute mark. How do you determine your own prices as an artist, whether it be your prints versus if something you're doing by hand? Because I'm assuming your prints come from your digital stuff on the tablet or computer, but if you're doing something by hand, there's a lot more. It becomes a different kind of price to it, because that's an original piece on paper that will never be recreated.
Yeah, I really don't actually sell them. I like to hold on to them. I don't know, at some given point, I've thought about maybe making a few available. I'm looking to do more traditional now, but I'm still not sold on actually selling them. I think I'd look more forward more to being able to, display them at shows and stuff. I don't have an answer for your question. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
But I really don't sell them.
What's your con schedule coming up besides New York Comic Con?
I'm not going to be at New York.
Oh, okay. I thought I heard.
Yeah,
I thought you said that.
The Comic Mint will have the exclusives, but we're not going to be there this year. We were thinking about going, but last minute it just didn't work out.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't have our schedule. I typically only do 2 to 3 shows a year. So yeah, nothing else for the remainder of this year.
Well, why don't you give away your social media information where people can find you? Can people, if they can't find your covers, are they able to order prints of any of the things you've done?
Prints I really only do at shows.
At shows, so you don't sell them online.
No,
Okay.
I used to offer them, but it's just was a little complicated. Like I said, I'm always multitasking, and it was something that I started doing because people were asking. It was more so for them as opposed to just kind of part of my business model.
I can also imagine shipping and packing of prints can become tiresome.
Yeah,
and you're worried if one gets damaged, someone's going to come back. Either they're going to be really nice about it, or they're going to be a complete jerk off online saying, "Oh, he doesn't know how to package his stuff. He doesn't care about his fans."
Yeah, and interestingly, I was doing it for them. The reason I was offering the prints was because a lot of people were asking about it. Maybe at a given point, I'll think about partnering with a retailer so I can offer some stuff. The best place to find collections of my covers and stuff is through the Comic Man. If anybody's looking for me on social media, I'm most active on Facebook. It's been the platform been most comfortable with, so I have a page there.
Yep, that's how I found you.
And I'm also on Instagram. Those are really the best two places.
And you have a Twitter as well, because I tagged you on Twitter.
Yeah, I really haven't been on there.
That's fine. I understand Twitter is a bumpy road right now.
even before that, it was like I could probably go through and literally count the amount of posts that I had over the years. I just didn't use it very much.
Gotcha.
But I'm trying to use Instagram a little bit more, but Facebook is where I'm the most interactive.
Gotcha. Well, hey, Shannon, thank you so much for coming on the show. Like I said, I've been a fan of yours for quite some time. When I see a cover of yours, I make sure I try and pick it up, and I'm definitely going to pick up your original series once it's collected in trade paperback.
Oh, super awesome. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. I want to make sure that that all looks good. I'm really excited about working with them and putting that book together.